Good morning, everyone. So usually I'm anxious to not anxious is over, but I'm enthusiastic about giving a talk, sharing my thoughts on some subject. This morning's quite the opposite. I wish I didn't need to say anything. I'm gonna have noble silence. You know, so we're taught that only two people had noble silence, Shakyamuni Buddha and Vimalakirti. Vimalakirti was a layman who lived during the time of the Buddha. Um, and those of you who are doing koans will, if you haven't already encountered Vimalakirti, you will, because he is the only human who bests Manjushri himself in sort of Dharma combat. So Vimalakirti is given a very high place of respect. So those guys, when they don't say anything, it's noble silence. When I don't say anything, it's what the F is wrong with Peter. Um, so I'm going to have to talk, I guess. But part of the reason that I'm tongue tied, well, going to back up a little, right? One of the things that I have tried to do, sometimes with some success and sometimes without, is to modulate the amount of news that I take in. Because there's a very fine line, at least for me, between being awake and paying attention, which I think is important at one level. Oh, and also not having my computer battery die, which is important. So hang on a second while I see if I can find the charger. Sorry, I apologize for that. I should have anticipated that. The plug lives under my desk and where it's pitch black. And compounded by the fact that there's a rather large Labrador retriever sleeping on top of it. And so I had to first off find a headlamp so I could see something under there and then kind of slide the dog's butt over so that I could plug the computer in. And fortunately, I accomplished that. So, anyway, thank you all for bearing with me. Um, yeah, so let's see if I can possibly get back kind of where I was, which, what the balance that I'm trying to maintain in my life, and maybe some of you can relate to this, is to being aware and awake, paying attention, and not being overwhelmed and falling into despair. And for me, at least, that's it's balancing on the head of a pin. And every so often, I fall off one way or the other, you know. And how does that relate to our Zen peacemaker model? Okay. First stage, not knowing. Well, frankly, I find not knowing the easiest part of the whole thing because in these times, I don't know how we know. I don't know how we attain certainty, how we get sort of static knowledge. Everything is so complex and unprecedented. It's like, not knowing. But then the next part, and this is where I'm going here, is bearing witness. How do I bear witness in these times and not get overwhelmed? As I said, not fall into despair. And what triggered me was yesterday, well, and this morning as well, hearing about what's happening in Gaza, hearing the descriptions of what are happening to the children and the babies there, and reading this morning that the doctors, the hospitals are completely out of any infant formula, so they're giving the infants water. The mother's breast milk is all dried up because the mothers are starving. How do I move from that, which I find absolutely shocking, horrifying, terrible? I can't find enough adjectives. To the place of responding with loving kindness and compassion. And frankly, maybe that's the problem that the whole world is having, the fact that this is going on and most of the world is remaining silent. Where's our collective loving kindness and compassion? Where's our response? And how do we respond? How do I respond? I've given a little bit of money to um, oh the World Kitchen to try to get some food there. I've signed some petitions. What can I do beyond that? Don't know. So it would be so much easier to close my eyes altogether. And I suspect that's part of why the world isn't responding more than it is. Because the situation is so problematic, so horrific, and there are no ready solutions, that it's easier to turn our head away. What can I do? And how do I find compassion? In my mind, at least, there are two men who are primarily responsible for what's happening there. I won't go into that much because that'll get us off into politics. How do I find compassion for those two men who are not only allowing this to happen, but want this to happen? So today I'm struggling with this. I don't have answers. The simplest answer would be to just turn it off and go on with my day as if it's not happening. And yet, I believe that the Dharma expects that we be awake and pay attention, bear witness. One of the bearing witness retreats that Bernie, well, originally Bernie, now it's Zen Peacemakers. Obviously, Bernie has passed on, but he's the one who created it. One of their original retreats was going to Auschwitz to bear witness to the camp. Actually, they hold the retreat in the women's death camp. Extraordinary bearing witness to spend a week in what must be one of the darkest places on earth. And we can think about the fact that, for looking back, that for a number of years that was going on and the whole world ignored it. And here we are in that same situation, with the tragic irony that some of the people who are perpetrating this are the descendants of the people in that camp. I don't know where to put this. I can't wrap my head around it. And if I look to the Dharma for solace, I find none. This morning's offering that I received from Tricycle, the headline, the title of it is "A Satisfying State of Happiness." The subheading is "How Tranquility Supports Meditation Practice and Ultimately Leads to a Deeper Sense of Contentment and Peace." Would that were true. Does that mean I never experience contentment and peace? No. But if I can experience contentment and peace in this moment, when there's such profound, conspicuous suffering that is largely unnecessary, how do I find contentment and peace? And what kind of human being would I be if I were content and peaceful at this moment? I'm sorry, in a way. I mean, I wish I could preach the Dharma of contentment and peace. And I think, as I said, I sort of, I struggle with having loving kindness for the people who are responsible for this particular set of horrors. when I see the three poisons so conspicuously at work, the greed, hatred, and ignorance. There are people who want the Gazans out so they can create a beach resort on the Mediterranean. How sick is that? How do I find compassion? For those people. There are people who want the Gazans out because they want to completely absorb that land into Israeli settlements. How do I find compassion for those people? I struggle. I don't have easy answers. And it's juxtaposed with our reality here, at least here in northern New England. Let's see. Okay, we only have one exception to that today. It's kind of a beautiful day. The temperatures are not bad. It's going to be a nice day to get out and do things. It's almost the end of July. Summer is almost half over. So it's a good day to go out and take a hike and eat ice cream. And not that I would do any of those things. But that said, how do we hold that dialectic between what's happened? And it's not just, I mean, I'm focused on Gaza today because they've been, the NPR has been focused on it, particularly what's happening to the children there. But we could be talking about Ukraine. We could be talking about South Sudan. We could be talking about Alabama. You know, it's the suffering is everywhere. It's so prominent. How do we create balance? How do we hold balance? How do we live our lives with any degree of fidelity to those Zen peacemaker tenets? I have no answers. I have no simple formula. Again, I wish I could. I wish I could just say magic words and it would all go away. But there it is. Maybe it's my failing as a teacher, you know? Maybe I should pull out a koan and say, let's talk about a koan. Let's see what went on in Tang Dynasty China. And sometimes the koans are completely on point and relevant, by the way. I don't mean to diss the koans. I'm going to shut up for a minute and let you all talk.
Good morning. I as you were talking, Peter, just now, um, and talking about contentment and peace, uh, for me to be content and peaceful with what is going on and with what I see as an increasing hardness of people and um, and the shutting down of many people's hearts, I could not, contentment and peacefulness is, I don't think I could seek that because I can't be content and peaceful. I won't be content and peaceful with that. And I'm not trying to be. No, and that is not saying that in my everyday life I'm working on being less busy so that I can take time to weed the garden and do those things and just be home. Um, uh, but my heart, of course, is just breaking about this in the world. But as you were talking, it came to me from my old Catholicism. And supposedly, Christ on the cross said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And that coming up in me um, was a little helpful in seeing this. We talk about how can, you know, how, I mean, every once in a while I can feel a tiny glimmer of compassion for these people who are responsible for this, which is all of us because we're one. Um, and for some reason or other, that seems important to me to find the way to compassion. Um, oh, it's hard. Yeah, that's it. Thanks.
Well, I think you've just, kind of hit precisely on it. It's hard to find the way to compassion, and yet that's in our job description. When we signed up to be Zen Buddhists, we said, oh, we're going to find the way to be compassionate, whether we knew that or not. So this is a tough job if we take it seriously, and I know you all do.
The couple of things have struck me as you have talked, Peter and Kathy. Um, when after the election, I think I have been going for some months with the uh, philosophy that, well, I can do what I can here. I can't directly help the children who are starving in Gaza, um, but I can help my neighbors, my community. And I found that to be helpful and consoling. Uh, However, it's been going on a long time now, and it's wearing thin, and I become more and more aware of the fact that what I'm doing, um, you know, I so for an example, I in my condo we have a huge construction job that's going all summer, and we have 25, 30 workers here every day. And of course, people get grumpy. So, because of the construction. And so I organized that the first Friday of each month, we at the condo um, bake cookies for the workers, and we bring some our baked goods out to the workers and thank them for the hard work they're doing in the heat and all that. And that's a nice positive thing to do. Um, and and then there's another part of it that feels kind of obscene that we're baking all this sweet stuff and delivering it to the people we want to thank. But when I think about Gaza and so much of the world, it it almost feels frivolous. It's like it's not getting to the real basis. It's kind of covering up. And then Kathy, when you said that you're trying to be less busy, that reminded me of the little bit of chit chat that we had before we started. And Jim was saying, oh, his summer has been so busy. And I chimed in, yes, my summer has been so busy. And I'm wondering, am I just busying myself to, oh, I'll do this, um, to cover up the fact that whatever I'm doing is so um, so insignificant to the big picture. And so those two things strike me. And I also was up in the middle of the night and I was reading, and I was reading a book called Union by Colin Woodard, who writes for our newspaper here. And this was taking place, we're in the early 1900s, and Woodrow Wilson is reinstituting segregation after there had been attempts to integrate for so many years. And and I'm thinking about who we are as a people, and our history is is really not very good as Americans. We slaughtered the people that we took land from, and we got involved with slaves. And so um, what I make of all that, I don't know. It's a mishmash. But I do feel that one thing that's missing in my life is uh, being less busy. And I don't know how that translates into making a better world, but I don't feel like the busyness that all of us are involved in really accomplishes much except make us more stressed about our own situation and maybe less aware of others. So I don't have any answers either. And as time goes on, I find I have fewer answers than I thought I had. So thank you.
Thank you.
Susan, I'm wondering what level of engagement or impact would satisfy you, right? So you go from baking baked goods to maybe working in a shelter to maybe working with a group to build a shelter to multiple shelters to, I mean, at what level, at what point, isn't this the nature of suffering, right? At, at what point are you satisfied? And that's kind of the place I've come to. I was recruited. The reason I've been so busy, I've been recruited to run for school board again. We have lots of problems in our town with the school board. We have lots of people who are lost in their own heads. And um, anyway, all I can do is what I can do where I am, you know? Once I start to spin out of control around right, bigger, or I feel like I lose my ability to actually do anything. So, I don't know, maybe it's just a question to ponder.
I think it's a good one. It makes me question attachment. What am I attached to? If it's saving the world, I'm going to do a lot of suffering.
One thing that comes to mind for me is, I mean, a lot of the suffering is caused by ideas that people have that uh, make them think they should do these things that are terrible and cause a lot of suffering, but they think they should be doing them because of the particular ideas they have, which are not grounded in compassion. They're grounded in some kind of mechanical process of these ideas. I don't know. So they flow from person to person, and people say hateful things, and then they repeat hateful things, and the hateful ideas go on from person to person. So I'm thinking that just by trying to not get just by trying not to be mere repeaters of these terrible ideas and instead to open up to having compassion in a way that could stop, at least where you are, the flow of these ideas. It's and saying things, about the compassionate way of experiencing everything that does not just to help other people, not just repeat the hateful ideas, is a lot. I mean, because I think like just about all the suffering is because people have these terrible, terrible ideas. Even the Nazis, they had these ideas about the Jews, and they thought it was better in the long run to, uh, and so to be part of stopping the flow of those ideas from people to people seems very important, and that's something we can all do. So that's a thought I have.
I don't know what sense really bearing witness really means, I guess. Uh, but last week you talked about following your heart. And one of the things you said, which made a lot of sense, is your heart knows what is good and joyous and beautiful when you see it, and it knows tragedy and sadness when you see it. That seems to be a good primer, a place to start. The second thing is this morning when you talked about, I try not to be overwhelmed so that I can still function, so that I don't short circuit. So that's an important guideline. But as cold, and that's not cold comfort, but what I think is in things that are so huge and almost insurmountable, the way it appears, is to feel the way you, Peter, and we are feeling, and to keep feeling it, bearing witness to what is something like this, and taking it in with great compassion for those people. Not turning away from it. It's a matter of witnessing it and not shutting off from that witnessing, which is what you also were saying we need to battle because it's so enormous, is something that is an activity. It is something that we are doing. And in our small way individually is a bearing witness of our good intentions, our compassion, our not looking away. It doesn't make up for huge amounts. We certainly need to help our fellow man and others as we can. But it's just the simple thing of keeping our hearts open and taking it in. Somehow I've got to think that reads through positively. It's a small contribution, but it's something.
Thank you, Cal.
For me, I think there is, and this might be overly simplistic, but I think there's something to be said, or something I try to think of often is for those that cannot. So enjoy the ice cream, enjoy the beauty, enjoy those things that we can enjoy for those that cannot. You still hold them in your heart and you have that compassion for them and you feel the pain. But don't let that just completely envelop you, overwhelm you, and bring you down. And while that is perhaps or can be seen as minimal, for me personally, is even when it comes to sitting with someone who is dying, is holding them and saying, I'm going to do what I can and do my best and try to enjoy my day and my everyday, being trying to be present, but holding you in my heart. And to me, there's I don't know, it's honoring them, it's understanding and feeling the pain of the child that is starving, the mother, who has just lost that child, the pain and just and I sometimes feel that during the day I'll think of things like that, when I am seeing the butterfly and I'm seeing the bird, whatever. There's so many people that can't see that right now, that are in so much pain, but I don't know, to me is that let me enjoy it and send you this beauty and think of you while I'm, I don't know, still moving forward and doing what I need to do with my life, but again, holding you here, but not falling into despair because of it. I don't know, it helps me. And again, it might be a little bit oversimplistic, but it's still kind of, to me, it's both. If we're all one, then I can't do a lot in the big picture, but just a little bit, a little sending you peace, thinking of them, trying to send them compassion and while maybe seen as minimal, to me is I'm doing something. So that's just.
Thank you. While you've all been talking, I've been thinking about what actually takes place on the Bearing Witness retreat at Auschwitz. And, for those who are not familiar with it, so they spend, who's they? Well, they invite in people from all the major groups that were impacted by the Holocaust on all sides. So Jews, Germans, Gypsies, gay people, Poles, and so on and so forth. And it's part of in some cases, probably less and less now, but in some cases, there may be people who actually were survivors of this, and certainly their immediate descendants. So what happens there? What's the process? I mean, to my way of thinking, it has to be in that camp where so many women were tortured and died. You can't escape that presence, right? I can't imagine there's any way that people that are there can shut that off. You're going to feel it. You're going to feel it acutely. You're going to see it. As you know, there's museums there where they have like the teeth, the bones, the concrete remains of people who were tortured and murdered in the camps. Anyway, so you can't shut it off there. That's kind of interesting to start with. I don't believe that shutting it off is even an option in that context. So you've got to look at it. You've got to look it right in the eye. Now, the remarkable things that happen is that these people come together from these diverse groups and face this horror. And the thing that happens at the end of the week is there is remarkable healing that occurs. So Poles who said they would never, ever talk to a German, and Germans are hugging each other. These kinds of historical wounds and feelings become transformed over the course of the week. Why? Well, I suspect it has something to do with, and some of you have alluded to this in various ways, that getting beyond the symbols and getting to the heart, the humanity of everyone involved. And that human to human, there's a place where we can meet and extend loving kindness and compassion, even to those we thought that would be absolutely impossible.
Peter, I think that's it. It on the human level, on the personal, the individual level, it's possible for the heart to be the guide. But when you get into your head and into the ideas that Gary was alluding to, the horrible things can happen. The decisions can be made that affect individual people. But it's at this level, isn't it? At the human level, that the connection through the heart is possible.
Well, certainly that's certainly true, no doubt. Sometimes, though, I have a hard time even getting there. Because, one of the things that helps in this Auschwitz example is that people are in proximity. They're talking with one another. They're hugging. They're telling their stories. My grandfather went through this. My grandfather went through this. And um, able to form the connection that you're talking about, Deborah, and form that, view one another's humanity. And that being the thing that they have in common, right? And to some extent, the suffering that was caused by it that they share. All those groups of people suffered. Okay.
I kind of want to share voice with RJ, that in the midst of all this ridiculous horror and failing as human beings, we are also finely tuned for whatever miracle, to experience and see beauty. And I think it's really crucial to also hold that, because because is maybe not the point, but I'll just say, because if we don't, then what the fuck? But that's not the point. The point is, we are all of this. We live all of this. We are in this world. Gary and I were just listening to something about why it is that we exist in this universe.
Physics.
It's physics, but we're we do, and the compassion emerges. Again, that's not even the point. Trying to make causality is not the point, but compassion is an arising related to beauty. So this is not to Pollyanna our way into ice cream rather than starvation, but to shut out the beauty also feels like a sin. And to embrace and open to the beauty feels like resonance with what we are all talking about, which is the arising of and holding to and blooming of compassion. And the more that there is access to that, access to our human response to a flower in the field or in each other, that's the miracle. So, RJ. Thank you.
Okay, I don't know if this, I don't know what I'm about to say, but it's swirling around in my head, so I'm going to say it. It's like I can't escape that I am deeply, deeply, deeply attached to myself and my survival and my being okayness. Um, there's a Christian saying that my parents said a lot when I was growing up that sort of came to my mind a few months ago, and I almost sort of lost faith in this entire experience because it was there, but for the grace of God, go I, which we heard a lot when we were growing up. Which is we're blessed because we're healthy. We're blessed because we live in Fairfield County, Connecticut, in a nice house. We're blessed because your parents have good jobs. You're blessed because we go on vacation. So there's this element of, yeah, oh God, yeah, I'm blessed. I'm lucky. Thank God. Thank God. Thank God. Thank God. And as we do this work, more into like, well, thank God I don't live in Gaza. Thank God I wasn't in a gas chamber as they filled it up with whatever noxious poison, and I'm scratching on top of people to claw my way out. Thank God I'm not whatever. You can find a million ubiquitous places to say, thank God that's not me. Always. I literally walked past someone in the Old Port yesterday, sleeping on cardboard that said I have 6 to 12 months to live because I have some kind of cancer. And I'm not saying this to be funny, I was literally eating a waffle cone of mint chocolate chip ice cream. And it's like, well, thank God that's not me. If I have problems with insomnia, I'm going to go get some Lunesta because I can't have insomnia. If I'm not happy with my hotel room, I'm going to get it changed because I want to be in a hotel room that doesn't smell bad. So I was so full of self-loathing because of this, because of what we do here. That there, but for the grace of God, go I, that I have. I was like, oh, screw this. I can't do this anymore. But something changed, which is just, but this is everybody. Everybody is there, but for the grace of God, go I. That's part of the human condition, is there, but for the grace of God, go I. Part of the human condition is I have a headache, so I'm going to take Tylenol. Or if I don't take meds, I'm going to go to an acupuncturist. Or I'm going to do something, but I'm going to get rid of the headache. So instead of self-loathing because of there, but for the grace of God, go I, I'm trying to change over to the acceptance of there, but for the grace of God, go I. And have compassion for myself for having this. Because it's, again, part of being alive. It's been this, and it is this, and it will be this. We try to make sense of it by saying, well, in a past life, I was good. So I live in the middle class, and I'm white. And I live on a nice town in a port in northern New England, and I make a good income because I was good. But if it was bad, then I'd be on the street on cardboard. That's bullshit. Probably. I don't know. I don't make the rules. Maybe it's not bullshit. Seems like bullshit. So it's all unknowable. And we're all clinging to ourselves. So instead of making up rules about why it happens, I think there's only compassion. That's the only choice. And that compassion is for self because self is the same as you. So it's just this, which I think I'm choosing is just compassion. And it's compassion for myself for feeling like shit as I'm eating a waffle cone walking past a homeless person. And it's compassion for the homeless person. And then is it compassion for Netanyahu? He's locked in this too. Making shitty choices. But he's locked in this too. So that's the best I got.
If that's the best you got, then you're going to give the Dharma talk next week.
I can't deal with that pressure. I reject the pressure.
Well, I won't tell you till it happens.
Okay.
Then you won't have any pre-anxiety. Okay. In the interest of that, it is summer and it is Sunday, and there are waffle cones to be eaten. I think we'll start to wind down here. Anyone have a last comment they want to make before we segue to a couple of news type things?
I would just like everyone to hold Louise in their heart.
Can people, can you, I guess, I think probably most people don't know how many people are getting like what is it, a newsletter from Treetop that talks about it or something? So maybe I'm the only one they don't send it to.
No.
Or does everybody else get it?
What, Kathy, did you? Anyway, Louise, I believe had ovarian cancer when she was a young woman. And recently it has come back with a vengeance. And she is refusing treatment, is rather looking forward to the next great adventure, which is very much Louise through and through. But it's like one day at a time. Yesterday, instead of a Dharma talk, Brad suggested that people remember stories that they have in their memories of with Louise, and how compassionate a person she is, how she took care of Margaret when Margaret was ill, how she has gardened and just she gives everything. She gives everything. And she is a bodhisattva. No question.
Would someone please remind me next week we'll set aside time and we'll do Tara Mantra for Louise. She is absolutely a bodhisattva. She is a wonderful, wonderful human being. So it's very sad.
So some of you were at Treetop for Jukai, and Louise is the older woman who probably prepared a meal for us. And just about everything she makes and cooks is from her own gardens. I mean, she has beautiful gardens that she's always taking care of, and vegetables and freezes and cans, and I'm very sad. I did hear the news about Louise starting hospice at home. So I don't know whether the people that were at Treetop remember her, but she is a lovely human being.
But she also has, in the Bodhisattva tradition, has a way of remaining invisible. So she's doing these wonderful things, but her ego, her presence, you don't even notice her, which
Yeah.
is kind of, you know.
And she talks to me about you often, Peter. She thinks the world of you. So,
So nobody's perfect.
right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. So
All
thank you for bringing that up. And yeah, we'll definitely do Tara Mantra for her next week. Yeah, and yes, and as I told Kathy, I'm not receiving information about this, so if any of you see information about this, please forward it on to me. I would appreciate that. Okay. All right. So the next thing on the agenda, I don't know if I've said this before, but it is official that we're having a retreat with both in-person and internet connectivity, October 23rd to 26th. And the home base of the retreat is going to be in Buxton, Maine. Details to follow. And it's going to take some creativity. To pull off, well, both parts, because I really not only want to have a nice in-person retreat, but a really meaningful retreat for people who aren't able to participate in person. And, you know, well, we'll deal with that more, but I think I hope we're able to be creative about finding ways to keep people who are on the internet more involved, feeling more present, and not like, okay, something goes on and then we turn off the screen and they go on with their lives, and but that maybe we can find a way to get greater continuity for those who aren't able to attend in person. Anyway, so that's sort of a little bit historic in the way that we're going to attempt to blend online and in-person participation. And who told me this? Well, how far is Buxton from Portland? 45 minutes? An hour? Something like that, huh? So hopefully people will be able to get there in person, at least at least some portion of it. Sleeping, the house that we have has limited sleeping accommodation. So if people want, as it gets closer, we'll go into all of this. I mean, it's complex, to have all the bells and whistles, literally bells and whistles, in place to have a retreat when it's not our regular Dharma home, and it's we as a Sangha are fairly decentralized, and now we have to get together and actually talk to one another. Oh, wait, we'll make the retreat silent. That gets us past that barrier. Okay. Any questions about that? Yeah, there'll be more information forthcoming as we get. I think RJ and I just talked about setting up a initial planning meeting. Is that true, RJ? Okay. So then after that, we'll have more info. Is that it?
Creations are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to put an end to them. Reality is boundless. I vow to perceive it. The enlightened way is unsurpassable. I vow to embody it. Creations are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to put an end to them. Reality is boundless. I vow to perceive it. The enlightened way is unsurpassable. I vow to embody it. Creations are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to put an end to them. Reality is boundless. I vow to perceive it. The enlightened way is unsurpassable. I vow to embody it.